Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's Tuesday and I've got a tag for you. Joe Spivey said I should do this tag, and you know I have to do whatever Joe Spivey tells me to do. So it's the BookTube Confessions Tag, and it was created by Book Reviews with Becky. So it's a very good tag, and I've seen a bunch of other people do it, so I was happy to do it today. And the first three questions of the tag I basically have the same answer for. So I thought I'd group them all together and then start with question number 3, which is, what genre do you read to get out of a book slump? Nonfiction. Number 2 is, has your reading taste changed over the years? How? I've read more nonfiction over the years. And number 1 is, what is an unpopular book opinion / preference you have? I think that nonfiction is better than fiction. Now, I know that this is an unpopular opinion. In fact, it gets me pelted with tomatoes. In the comments sections of my videos, in emails, people make fun of me for how much nonfiction I read. But look, I think it's better. I don't know what to tell you. I think that people, myself definitely included, and especially included, don't know much about the world around them. And it is shocking to me how much solace I've taken over the years in finding out more about the world around me. How much the facts and realities of that world shape the way that I see it, shape the way that I see myself in it, and the solace that brings is way more personal than I thought it was going to be, than I ever would have thought it to be. So one of the big goals with my channel is to talk honestly about the books that I read, and in doing so, I will be talking about a lot of nonfiction, and hopefully if you're one of those fiction readers, who I feel so bad for, I will convince you to read at least some nonfiction, because there are some people out there who read no nonfiction. And of course I love fiction too. I mean, there won't be many pieces of nonfiction that would, in fact there isn't, I don't think, any piece of nonfiction that rivals the heights of fiction. Very few, if any at all, ever writers of nonfiction are going to reach like the level of Tolstoy or something like that. But I do think that in terms of like as a whole, in aggregate, you know, for me, I think the ratio in terms of what I read in a monthly basis or whatever is typically like 2 to 1. For every 1 book of fiction, it'd be 2 of nonfiction. And I'm happy with that, because what happens is I don't end up in the weird, twisted world of impressions and metaphysics and whatnot that I get thrown into when I start reading only fiction. And for a long time, I thought of reading as a puzzle that needed to be solved, because that was like the literary theory that I was interested in. Those were the pieces of fiction that I was interested in. These puzzles that you needed to parse out and understand the meaning of and like fully unpack, and there are layers to it, and where you start talking about the death of the author and you start going into all of these things. When I started to read nonfiction, I found my feet planted on the ground, planted in reality, planted in facts. And that was a change that at first didn't mean much to me, and then over time started to mean everything to me, because it started to affect the way that I saw the world, and it started to affect the way that I saw other people's arguments and the way that people reacted to, you know, contemporary events and things like that, in a way that fiction never did. And I think that sometimes people can overstate the lessons that can be learned from fiction. There are people like Jordan Peterson out there, which we don't need to get into, you know, politics or anything, or ideology or anything like that. But they seem to think that like the key to all understanding of the world around us is through reading the Brothers Karamazov 16 times. Now, the Brothers Karamazov is a great book, no doubt, but sometimes it can help to know, well, who exactly or what exactly was a kulak. You know, you keep talking about it, but it doesn't seem like you actually know who that was or what that group of people meant. And you can find that out. You can read about the Russian Revolution, and you can engage with the literature. I'm not talking about Jordan. I'm just talking about you as an individual. I can. Anybody can. And then you don't have to listen to other people tell you about this stuff. You can interact with it yourself and interact with the reality of the history that came before you, of the contemporary world that you live in, of the natural world that we share with the plants and animals around us. I've talked a lot about how learning about natural history can enchant your world because it can show you just how insane all of the different forms of life on this planet are, and how fascinating that can be. And people in fiction, a lot of times you're looking at, fantastical worlds. You're looking to worlds that could never exist, or things that came out of people's imagination. And that's awesome. That's great. But this world is plenty interesting too. The world that we live in is plenty interesting too. And I think people sometimes overlook that. And I think also people are shockingly unaware of so many aspects of the world that we live in. And it's not a problem necessarily in an objective sense that I'm concerned with, but on a personal level, I think those people are missing out. I know I was. I know that I still am, and that's why I like reading nonfiction so much. So I'm going to keep reading nonfiction, and I'm going to keep beating the nonfiction drum, even if people might make fun of me for it. But that is my unpopular opinion. And I think to speak to question 2 about my reading taste changing over the years, the more that I've read nonfiction, the more that I've loved it, the more that I've read of it, and the more that it's affected my life in positive ways. And even right now, in terms of question 3, what genre do you read it to get yourself out of a reading slump? Just yesterday, I read a very draining piece of fiction, which was All the King's Men, a book that I thoroughly enjoyed, a book that affected me in a lot of ways, good ways. But after that, after I put that book down, I reached for 2 pieces of fiction that I had on my TBR, read a little bit of them. Neither of them worked for me. And I just retreated into some nonfiction. And I know that's the right thing to do for me right now, because I need to be in the world of the real. And the only way to do that for me is to read nonfiction. So now for question 4, what are some of your automatic buy authors? Well, I like this question a lot, but there are 2 ways to read it. One is to read it for authors. The first way that I read it was like authors that are still alive and publishing. When they come out with a new book, what are some of those automatic buy authors? You know when they come out with a new book that you need to read it. And for me, that would be Diarmuid MacCulloch. He just came out with a new book. Lower Than the Angels is called. And I need to read that book as soon as possible. But I haven't read all of Diarmuid MacCulloch yet, but he is fantastic. And one of the best to write about what he writes about. So that's an automatic author to buy for me in terms of living authors. In terms of dead authors, this did make me consider my TBR for this month and the TBR that I'm building for next month. So many of the books that I read are by authors that are dead. And obviously that's not unique to me. Many people are in the same boat. There's a lot more dead authors than there are alive authors. And their classics stick with us. Then that question would be automatic buy in terms of if you see them in a bookstore, a used bookstore or whatnot, which authors are you going to snatch up right away? And I mean, that list is way too long to go through, but recently I've been on just a huge Stephen Jay Gould kick. So if I see anything by Stephen Jay Gould, literally anything by Stephen Jay Gould, I'll buy it. I don't care. So there you go. Number 5 is how many chances do you give an author before you won't try them again? Another great question but I do have to answer this one in a similar way, which is like, it just depends. I mean, I'm sorry to all you Irving Stone fans out there, and I know that there's a lot of you, but I will never read another Irving Stone novel again. I'm burnt out after one book. I spent 800 pages with that agonizing agony and ecstasy, and I don't want to do it again. I'm not interested in reading another Irving Stone book. So sometimes it's one book, one particularly egregiously bad book. Other times there are people like Carlos Eyre. Carlos Eyre wrote a fantastic book on the Reformation called Reformations. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful book on the Reformation. The first book that I read on the Reformation that made me really fall in love with the subject. I cannot recommend that book highly enough. It's fantastic. But recently, last year, he came out with a book called They Flew, which was garbage, which was bad. Now, I'm willing to admit that something like the agony and the ecstasy might not appeal to me for personal reasons, and that's, totally fine if you like the agony and the ecstasy. But I will die on a hill and say on the hill that They Flew is a bad book. Strangely amateur, I feel like, in a lot of ways. Badly edited. Just I don't know what he was trying to do with that book. I mean, I do know what he was trying to do with that book, and that's what was so concerning about it, was that he was really thinking that he had something there, but he just didn't. And I would love to somehow make a video about it at some point, because I think that it springboards into a very interesting conversation. I mean, before I started this channel, I was writing a very long review of it just for my own personal edification, and I might end up trying to make that into a video at some point, but that would be a lot of work. I don't know if I have the time to do that, but it would be interesting to do. But anyway, before I get distracted, as far as the question, like, if Carlos Eyre came out with another book, it would just depend on what the book was about. If it was about the Reformation, I'd buy it immediately. I loved his book on the Reformation. I'd happily read another book of his about the Reformation or any other thing of Christian history or intellectual history or whatnot. I would absolutely buy that. I take his opinions on that very seriously. I think he's like the head of religious studies at Yale or something like that. I mean, he's well-known, well-respected. And again, he wrote a really big, really grand book on the subjects of the Reformation, and that's, really, really worth celebrating. But if it's a book, I mean, he has got a book out on a biography of St. Teresa of Avila, for example, that I have absolutely less than zero interest in reading, just based on what he says in They Flew. And if he releases another book like that, I can't do it again. It was too disheartening to see him take the direction that he took in that book, and I would never want to subject myself to that again, unless it was so egregious that I just felt like I needed to, just to see why he would do something like that, But anyway, so that's my answer to that. Number 6 is, do you have anything you like to do / listen to while you read? I do listen to like white noise or ambient sounds when I read sometimes. When I lived in Boston and I would commute to work every day on the T, I would listen to like ambient sounds to kind of help me focus on what I was reading, which helped a lot. So I do like to do that. Rain sounds or whatever can help me focus. But I generally try to avoid drinking or eating or anything like that when I'm reading, because it will pull me out of the book. It will distract me, and so I don't like doing that. So. But I will listen to like ambient sounds and whatnot. Number 7 is, how far do you read before DNFing? And DNF stands for do not finish, if you're not up on the BookTube lingo. But it just depends. I was thinking about this question, and it's funny because I finish so many books that I don't like. Whether they're fiction or nonfiction, I finish so many books that I don't like. I don't know why I do that. I would say now I have committed myself to jumping ship on pieces of fiction that I don't like pretty early on. Now, of course, I literally did not do that in the last piece of fiction that I just read. But generally, I try and do that, especially when it comes to fiction. If it's nonfiction and I'm not enjoying it, I'm probably not enjoying it because I'm disagreeing radically with the author, like They Flew, as I just mentioned. But if anything, that makes the book even more interesting for me and more compelling for me to finish, because then I think to myself, well, I want to know the totality of this bad argument before I pick it apart and destroy it, at least in my head. I don't want to read half of this, commit myself to the idea that this is trash, but always have that splinter in my brain of like, well, maybe they pull it out at the end. Maybe they somehow justify everything in the last act. I want to be able to establish well and truly why this idea or why this thesis or why the evidence that they're using or whatever is subpar, wrong, whatever it may be, and know that I have the full argument in front of me when I do so that I can just like comfortably argue against it. So if it's a piece of nonfiction and it's not that the argument is wrong, it's just useless, then I'll DNF it, or I just find it completely boring. A lot of pieces of anthropology are like that for me, where I can't read much anthropology, and I can't engage with it critically. I can't do anything with it. So I have in the past DNF'd a lot of anthropology, and I've pretty much given up on it as a category of nonfiction that I'm interested in reading. So I've DNF'd the whole category of anthropology, I guess, but not really. But number 8 is, do you find yourself making the same faces as the characters in the book? And I agree with Joe on this. I do, kind of. I do. I won't fully mime out what I'm reading. That's a little crazy. But I will. My face will twitch when I read. And it might twitch according to what the character's expression is, or what it's describing the character's expression as being. So sometimes it'll happen. If a character's described as smiling, maybe the corners of my mouth will like twitch up, or if they're frowning, maybe I'll like crease my eyebrows a little bit. But yeah, I'm not like fully miming anything out, but I will react. And if I like something a lot, I'll give it a, but that's just like a weird tick I have. And then number 9 is reading. Yes, no, depends. Well, I'm sorry. It's rereading. Did I say that? Rereading. Do I reread? I already answered this and just my previous tag last Tuesday. It was dedicated to rereading. It was a tag by Robert G. Reader at Books about rereading. So I've already addressed that. If you want to watch that video, it was a very interesting tag about it. But actually, this does give me the perfect opportunity to address some of the comments that I got in that video. Which were people talking about their own mortality, great subject, and they were talking about how, well, I'm going to die before I read all of the books that I'm interested in reading, so I barely have time to read, let alone reread, was some of the comments that I got, and that was something I forgot to address in my video, which I shouldn't have, because I feel the same way sometimes, how many books are out there, you'll never get to all of them, how limited your time is, and so you don't have time to reread, I understand where that's coming from, but, when you read something that's really great, it becomes like your friend, and you want to spend time with your friend, there are 7 billion people in the world. I'm not going to meet all 7 billion of those people. You're not going to meet all 7 billion of those people. A lot of those people are probably really cool, and you'd love to have a beer with them, but you're just never going to meet all of them. Instead, you're going to have friends. You're going to meet people. You're going to like the people that you meet. And when you meet those people, you're going to want to spend time with them. You're going to want to hang out with them and be with them for, as long as you can be with them for. So it's the same thing with books. Obviously, it's nice to branch out, and it's nice to experience new people, and it's nice to experience new books. I'm not saying that that's bad at all. I do that all the time. But at the same time, it's always nice to return to those people, return to those books as well, and spend time with them. Even though you know that you're not going to meet all the people in the world, even though you're not going to read all the books in the world, it's nice to spend time with the people that matter and the books that matter to you. So that's how I would assuage the the guilt of knowing that I'm not going to read all the books that I will ever want to read. And then number 10 is tag other booktubers. This tag is actually a little bit old, so I've seen a lot of people do this tag already. So I don't know off the top of my head anybody who hasn't done this tag. But if you haven't done it and you want to do it, feel free. Consider yourself tagged. And I think I'm going to leave it there. I had a really big video yesterday on me reading All the King's Men, which I thought was a lot of fun. So if you haven't seen that video, it would mean a lot if you checked it out, because I put a lot more effort into that one. So I'm a little burnt out today, but hopefully I'll be back tomorrow. With another book review. So we'll see. Or book vlog, rather. I don't do reviews on this channel. But anyway, that's it for me today. Thank you, BookTube.